In the tempestuous landscape of American history, few events have been as persistently shrouded in mystery as the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, an event that has been the subject of endless scrutiny and countless debates for more than half a century. The tragic incident still leaves numerous unanswered questions that have both baffled and haunted the collective American psyche. Picture a crisp autumn day in Dallas, Texas on Friday, November 22, 1963. The air was filled with excitement and anticipation as the president's motorcade slowly made its way through the city. Little did the jubilant onlookers know, it would soon turn into one of the most infamous days in U.S. history. From an unsuspecting sixth-floor window at the southeast corner of the Texas School Book Depository, the fateful shots rang out, forever sealing that day's place in history. The president, struck by 2 bullets, with the second inflicting a lethal wound to his head, was a heartbreaking sight. Governor John B. Connally, Jr., seated in the same car, was injured as well but miraculously survived the ordeal. It was reported that 3 bullets had been discharged by the assailant, and this ghastly act was immortalized by an 8mm film camera held by Abraham Zapruder. This film would come to be a linchpin for investigators, providing an invaluable frame-by-frame chronicle of the dreadful moment. But who would commit such a heinous act? The crosshairs of suspicion quickly settled on Lee Harvey Oswald. Yet, in a twist that could only intensify the maelstrom of confusion, Oswald was gunned down in cold blood by Jack Ruby, right in the heart of the Dallas Police Department. All of this took place in front of a live television audience, leading one to wonder about the audacity and temerity of Ruby. But there's more to this puzzle. Critics have often pointed fingers at the puzzling trajectory of the motorcade route. It was curiously laden with an abundance of turns, compelling the motorcade to reduce its speed. This peculiar choice was made by Secret Service agents Winston G. Lawson and Forrest V. Sorrells, and in a move that some might describe as being fraught with staggering negligence, despite over 20,000 windows looming over the route, not one window was inspected. In an age known for its meticulous security, such oversight seems incomprehensible. Just a week after that dreadful day, the newly sworn-in President Lyndon B. Johnson set up a commission, led by Supreme Court Justice Earl Warren, to probe into the circumstances surrounding both the JFK assassination and the subsequent Oswald killing. While the esteemed commission corroborated the belief that Oswald acted alone, the murky waters of conspiracy theories had already started to swirl. Oswald, a figure of controversy in his own right, had a life marred by violence and instability. His stint in Russia, during which he tried to abandon his American citizenship, his volatile history marked by violent outbursts, and his time in the Marine Corps where he honed his skills as a sharpshooter, painted a puzzling picture. Moreover, the fact that he worked right at the Texas School Book Depository, the very nexus of this tragedy, and was under active surveillance by the FBI, only intensifies the intrigue. However, in a glaring lapse of communication, the FBI failed to notify the Secret Service about Oswald's background. Such communication breakdowns and oversights between the 2 crucial agencies were alarmingly recurrent. Each agency seemed to hold critical pieces of information that, had they been shared, could have perhaps altered the course of that fateful day. In the labyrinth of conspiracies, ambiguities, and official accounts, the truth of what really transpired on that tragic day in Dallas remains tantalizingly elusive. Yet one thing remains clear: the enigma of Kennedy's assassination continues to captivate and confound. As the debate rages on, we are left to wonder, will the shadows ever fully lift to reveal the entire story? Today's narrative picks up as we delve deeper into the findings of the Warren Commission on the assassination of John F. Kennedy. The commission, after exhaustive research, provided evidence they believed conclusively pointed to Lee Harvey Oswald as the shooter. From the commission's report, they emphasized the Mannlicher Carcano 6.5mm Italian rifle from which the shots were fired was owned by and in the possession of Oswald. This assertion stemmed from the bullet and fragments they retrieved. A nearly whole bullet was discovered on Governor Connally's stretcher, and 2 fragments in the president's car, all of which matched that specific rifle. This very rifle was found hidden close to the 6th-floor window, accompanied by 3 bullet cartridges that aligned with the 3 gunshots that were heard. Further cementing Oswald's violent tendencies and ability, the commission pointed to a previous incident where Oswald attempted to assassinate Major General Edwin A. Walker on April 10, 1963. Although his attempt on General Walker's life was unsuccessful, it did provide a window into Oswald's disposition and willingness to resort to violence. His shooting proficiency was further emphasized when just 45 minutes after Kennedy's assassination, he fatally shot Dallas policeman J.D. Tippit. Witness testimonies, coupled with cartridge cases that matched Oswald's revolver at his arrest, made it undeniable that he had taken another life that day. This additional act of violence post-assassination seemed inconsequential in the grand scheme, as Oswald had already committed an act of immense gravity by taking the life of the president. While the evidence seemed overwhelming against Oswald, questions remained. Was he a lone actor or part of a grander conspiracy? The swift murder of Oswald by Jack Ruby only intensified these speculations. Could Ruby have silenced Oswald to prevent him from revealing a larger plot? The Warren Commission, in its thoroughness, concluded that neither Ruby nor Oswald were part of a larger conspiracy. In their eyes, Oswald was the only shooter, acting on his own motives. To understand the events of that fateful day better, it's essential to look at the bullets and their trajectories. The Warren Commission postulated 3 shots. The first missed its target. The second passed through JFK, hitting his neck, and then Governor Connally. The third and final bullet delivered the fatal headshot to Kennedy. The second bullet's trajectory has been a significant point of contention. This magic bullet is believed to have gone through JFK's neck, into Connally's back, out below his nipple, through his wrist, and finally lodged itself in Connally's thigh. The fact that this bullet was found nearly whole on Connally's stretcher has been met with widespread skepticism. One of the primary challenges with this theory is the perceived impossibility of the bullet's path from the 6th-floor window. Digital recreations of the event have shown that the trajectory is indeed possible when considering the relative seating positions of JFK and Connally. But even with these considerations, the pristine condition of the bullet after such a tortuous path through 2 bodies seems improbable. Moreover, the Warren Commission's assertion that the magic bullet theory is not crucial to their conclusion has raised more eyebrows. A detailed examination of the Zapruder film indicates that there wasn't sufficient time for Oswald to fire 2 distinct shots at the moment JFK and Connally were first hit. This discrepancy suggests the presence of a second shooter if the magic bullet theory isn't accurate. This point of contention between the bullet trajectories, the time frame, and the possibility of a second shooter continues to fuel debates and conspiracies surrounding the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Taking all these details into account, the labyrinthine events surrounding the assassination of President John F. Kennedy seem to unfurl a vast and complex tapestry of narratives, some grounded in reality, and others lost to speculation and conspiracy. Governor Connally's conviction was strongly asserted in a 1966 interview with Life magazine, where he firmly stated his belief that 2 separate bullets were responsible for his and the president's injuries. This alone casts a shadow of doubt on the widely held magic bullet theory. And when one factors in the account of James T. Tague, a mere bystander at the event, the whole narrative seems to fragment even further. Tague recounted a stray bullet hitting the sidewalk nearby, with the ricochet grazing his cheek. In the wake of this claim, investigations did find a mark on the sidewalk, one that could, as the Warren Commission report suggests, have been caused by the lead core of a bullet. If we juxtapose Tague's statement that this stray bullet was indeed the second shot, and not the first, with the existing narrative of the Warren Commission, discrepancies become glaringly evident. The magic bullet theory becomes even more precarious, suggesting a possibility of more than the initial 3 shots being fired. The idea of more than one shooter begins to sound less like the product of conspiracy theory and more like a legitimate avenue of inquiry. Then came the revelation of the 70s, which brought forth cutting-edge acoustic research techniques, enabling experts to comb through the very audio of the assassination. To their astonishment, they detected 6 echo patterns that resembled gunfire. This new evidence began to tilt the scales in favor of the multiple shooter theory. Another intriguing piece in this vast puzzle was the supposed alternate footage of the assassination. Witnesses claimed that the video showcased a different angle than the renowned Zapruder film, potentially revealing new evidence. Some insisted they spotted wisps of gun smoke or even a second shooter positioned on the now famous grassy knoll. The tantalizing detail, however, lies in the film's current status: missing. This great historical enigma was only further deepened when the U.S. government found itself at odds with Cynthia Nix Jackson, the grandchild of the very individual who captured the supposed film. She pressed charges in the year 2015, demanding a hefty sum of $10 million in exchange for the return of this potentially groundbreaking evidence. The last known sighting of the film was during its use by the House Select Committee on Assassinations in 1978. The formation of the House Select Committee on Assassinations itself was birthed from a scandal: the discovery that the CIA had deliberately held back information pertinent to the Warren Commission's investigation. This withheld data pertained to intricate plots to assassinate none other than Fidel Castro. When the committee finally presented its findings in 1978, it made a shocking proclamation. The committee was convinced that JFK's assassination was the likely result of a conspiracy, although they remained uncertain about the extent of this conspiracy and the identity of the other gunman. Given these staggering revelations and the weight of evidence pointing to multiple shooters, one cannot help but feel that the widely accepted narrative surrounding JFK's death is at best incomplete and at worst misleading. While Lee Harvey Oswald's involvement cannot be dismissed, there is a compelling case to be made for a broader conspiracy at play. And while countless theories swirl around the fateful day of JFK's assassination, including suggestions of political machinations at the hands of Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson, it's crucial to approach these ideas with a discerning eye and a quest for truth. The ramifications of such revelations, after all, shake the very foundations of American history and the trust citizens place in their institutions. Throughout history, one can find that political power and mob connections often go hand in hand. Thus, the idea that the mob had something to do with the Kennedy assassination isn't as far-fetched as it might initially seem. Consider the intricate intricacies of politics and power dynamics at play during the 1960s in America. Lyndon B. Johnson, with his larger-than-life personality and ties to Texas, may have felt overshadowed by the charismatic Kennedy, but the direct evidence linking him to the assassination seems circumstantial at best. Madeleine Brown's claim, for instance, though sensational, lacked concrete proof and didn't necessarily establish a motive strong enough to kill a president. Johnson's complex personality, as described by some, oscillates between a savvy politician and a man of simple tastes, much like a local jock, a meathead, as some would say. On the other hand, the tension between the U.S. and Russia during the Cold War era was palpable. Lee Harvey Oswald's connection to Russia and his past attempts to defect to the Soviet Union added more layers to the conspiracy theories. However, the logic behind the Russians using someone as conspicuously connected to them as Oswald to assassinate the American president seems convoluted. It would have been a significant gamble, one that could easily backfire and escalate the Cold War into a full-blown conflict. Employing someone with obvious Russian ties would be an illogical move. It would be like laying a trail directly back to their door. Would the Russians really risk mutual destruction for the sake of removing Kennedy from power? Then there's the mob angle. The intricate web of the American underworld has always been shrouded in mystery and intrigue. The mob's influence in those times, particularly in cities like Chicago, Miami, and New Orleans, was vast. These cities were hotbeds of crime, and the mob's tentacles reached deep into various sectors, from entertainment to politics. Claims from 3 separate mob factions about their involvement in Kennedy's death further complicate the puzzle. Their motivations could range from financial gains, territorial disputes, or even perceived betrayals by the Kennedy administration, especially given Robert Kennedy's aggressive crackdown on organized crime. As the narrative unfolds, it becomes evident that the Kennedy assassination isn't just a straightforward murder case. It's a dense tapestry of political intrigue, international rivalries, and underworld machinations. With each theory, more questions arise, making the truth even more elusive. The interplay of so many powerful forces in the backdrop of one of the most significant events in American history makes it a tale that continues to fascinate and perplex people even decades later. The myriad of conspiracy theories surrounding the assassination may offer a glimpse into the complexity of power dynamics of that era, but the definitive truth remains shrouded in mystery. Robert Kennedy, during his tenure as Attorney General, had launched considerable campaigns against organized crime. This proactive stance might have unintentionally ignited the wrath of the criminal underworld. Jack Ruby, infamous for the murder of Lee Harvey Oswald, ran nightclubs in Dallas and was theorized by some to be entwined with mafia strings. Rumblings persisted that there might have been a sinister collaboration between the mob and the CIA in the execution of the Kennedy assassination. In 2015, an assertion added more intrigue to this theory. An incarcerated ex-mafia hitman, James Files, claimed he was the second gunman involved in Kennedy's assassination. He purported that the plot was a combined effort of the mafia and the CIA. But despite his claims, concrete evidence remains elusive. Intriguing connections existed between the Kennedys and Sam Giancana, the reputed head of the Chicago Syndicate, during those times. There were whispers that Joseph Kennedy, JFK's father, once collaborated with Giancana during the Prohibition days in the bootlegging industry, adding more layers to their association. Giancana was rumored to have aided JFK in securing the 1960 presidential election victory. Moreover, JFK and Giancana apparently had a shared romantic interest. Judith Campbell Exner, albeit at different times. Giancana's mysterious death in 1975, just before he was to testify about his involvement in a CIA assassination scheme, inevitably raises eyebrows. Was his death orchestrated to maintain silence? A transition from the criminal world to the shadowy alleys of espionage brought forth the fourth theory: the CIA's hand in the assassination. Alan Dulles, the CIA's former head and a member of the Warren Commission, faced accusations of withholding critical information. The CIA later termed their actions as a benign cover-up. There are speculations about the possible motives of the CIA. Rumors suggest that JFK might have stumbled upon a CIA plan to assassinate Fidel Castro. Fearing a change in Kennedy's stance or his intention to dismantle the agency, the CIA might have plotted against him. Historical records indeed show multiple attempts on Castro's life. The failed Bay of Pigs invasion was a significant embarrassment, after which Kennedy initiated significant personnel shifts within the CIA. Such changes could have provoked animosity within the agency's ranks. Patrick Nolan, a forensic historian, penned CIA Rogues and the Killing of the Kennedys. In his book, he posits that 4 high-ranking CIA agents not only devised the assassination, but also actively partook in it, with 3 of them firing shots. Oswald, with his communist inclinations and Russian affiliations, could have been the CIA's puppet for the task. Accusing the CIA is like grappling with shadows. Their clandestine operations, executed with precision and secrecy, make them formidable and enigmatic. Any attempt to pin blame on them would be tantamount to venturing into a maze without an exit. In the midst of these theories and speculations, there's a detail that seems oddly out of place, yet strangely significant. During the Bay of Pigs invasion, Kennedy declined to provide additional U.S. military reinforcements, even though the CIA proposed an umbrella of air protection. The mention of an umbrella leads us to a controversial tangent connected to the CIA theory. Within the conspiracy circles, there emerges a peculiar wrinkle to the story of Lee Harvey Oswald, suggesting that he might have had an accomplice in the assassination. This accomplice is often referred to as the Umbrella Man, a moniker that paints a vivid image, yet is surprisingly straightforward. There isn't any cryptic meaning behind this name. It merely describes what was seen. In various pictures, and especially in the Zapruder film captured at the time of the assassination, a solitary figure can be observed holding an open umbrella above his head. Now, this might seem insignificant to most, but there were a couple of oddities about this Umbrella Man that raised eyebrows. Firstly, there was no rain on the day of the assassination. Even though it had rained in Dallas the night prior, there wasn't a single other person in the crowd carrying an umbrella. Secondly, and more suspiciously, as Kennedy's car approached the Umbrella Man, the first bullet struck the president. Additionally, there are those who assert that in that very moment, the Umbrella Man seemed to raise his umbrella slightly. These details combined led some to speculate whether the umbrella was some sort of signal for another shooter, or, even more intriguingly, if it was some sort of weapon itself, perhaps designed to shoot darts, which might explain the tiny puncture wound observed on Kennedy's neck. This idea isn't as far-fetched as it may seem. Believe it or not, a weapons developer for the Department of Defense, Charles Sensini, once testified before the Senate Intelligence Committee. He claimed to have designed a unique weapon that mimicked the appearance of an umbrella, capable of silently firing darts. Building on this idea, an author named Jim Marrs, who wrote extensively about JFK, argued that these darts could be discharged through the umbrella's fabric when it was unfurled. Photographic evidence seemed to support this theory, as the umbrella was notably closed both before and after the assassination but open during the event. This fascinating narrative paints a vivid picture of the Umbrella Man as a cross between a Bond villain and a character out of comic lore, reminiscent of Oswald Cobblepot, also known as the Penguin, who wielded a deadly umbrella gun. Yet the story doesn't end there. In a strange twist, a man named Louis Stephen Witt came forward, presenting himself as the supposed Umbrella Man. Witt's testimony to the Senate committee included a historical anecdote about his umbrella. He explained that it was merely a symbol of protest against JFK's father, Joseph Kennedy. Joseph, as the ambassador to the court of St. James in the late 1930s, had been known for appeasement policies, and the umbrella Witt held was reminiscent of Neville Chamberlain's signature accessory, the then Prime Minister of England, who also championed appeasement. Although it might sound odd, there are historical instances where umbrellas were indeed symbols of protest, both in England and the U.S. Even Richard Nixon, in his time as vice president, had forbidden his aides from carrying umbrellas, wary of the political associations they might convey. Despite Witt's testimony and his claim that the opened umbrella obstructed his view of the assassination, leading him to remain calm in the aftermath, doubts remain. The question is whether Witt truly was the Umbrella Man, merely caught in an unfortunate misunderstanding, or if he was merely a decoy used by the CIA to mislead investigations. Ultimately, the enigma of Dallas on that fateful day remains. Surveys conducted years after the assassination reveal a public still skeptical of the official narrative. The majority believe in a larger plot, or even the involvement of a second shooter. Former President Lyndon B. Johnson even once remarked that he doubted Oswald acted alone. Regardless of personal beliefs, one fact remains undeniable. The events surrounding JFK's assassination are shrouded in mystery, leaving many questions unanswered. Among them is the lingering doubt. Was Lee Harvey Oswald the sole perpetrator, or was there another, perhaps a mysterious figure with an umbrella, lurking in the shadows? This chilling chapter in history remains, to this day, unsolved. In the maze of history, the truth often hides in the shadows. Help us shine a light on more mysteries by hitting that like button and sharing your thoughts below. Curious for more enigmas? Subscribe and join us on this quest for the truth. Your engagement could be the key to unlocking the next big revelation.